Okay, so yeah, my name is Sade Adetunji, and I'll be talking to you about building a resilient mindset. And before we get started, um, I've been thinking about this, like, is this something that I just do, or is it something that can be learned? And that's what got me kind of looking into what is resilient, what is mindset, what does it mean to me, in terms of the journey I've come through. So I'll get into it in a minute, but I'll introduce myself. That's me. I'm a business agility coach and executive coach by day job. I was a qualified teacher and transitioned into tech, so I've done the teaching aspect. I've got that background. I'll share some stories from my teaching days as well, and transition into tech for some different reasons. I am a coach as well. So apart from the work I do with my organization, I do offer coaching courses outside of my normal job as well. I'm a mum to three wonderful children. They keep me very busy. Two girls and a boy, but I feel like I have two boys and a girl because my youngest is very, very, very active, very, very, yeah, pushes me, my parenting to the limit, put it that way. But she's very good at football. I usually spend the days when I'm not working or coaching, I'm on a football pitch. If it's in the winter, I'm not very happy because I'm cold. Hand warmers don't work for me. But I do love it. I love watching the game, and I love seeing the growth, as my kids really, really do enjoy and seem to be thriving in that field. Um, I'm a daughter, and I think that's important to also say when we talk about ourselves, introduce ourselves, you need to put your whole perspective together. I'm a sister as well. Um, and I do enjoy speaking, and I'm trying to build up my speaking capabilities and skills and improve. So um, quite nervous. I haven't done this in a while. So yeah, that's me. And one of the things that people say about me before I get into it is I'm someone who's empathetic, and I notice that even in my day-to-day interaction, and that's why if I see someone that's not feeling their best or at their best, even when I'm not feeling that great, I'm that person that I would want to make somebody else feel better, even if I can't make myself feel better at that time. And that's just me in nature. I just love to be able to help. Um, and I see that also in my kids, even some of the feedback. I'm like, so why is that happening? What is it? So for me, it's important to really be your authentic self. It's important to look after yourself. And looking after yourself isn't just going to the gym or having a spa or having your nails done or having your hair done. Looking after yourself is looking after your engine, right? Your engine, what makes our brain, our mindset, the way you're thinking, and who makes you feel good, what makes you feel good. Sometimes you wear that dress and it just kind of brings a different persona out of you, or sometimes you see that friend and they bring that different side to you as well. All of those things are quite important. So moving on. So resilience. For me, this is a definition of it is the ability to adapt to adversity and trauma. And it sounds a bit, whoa, that's a bit too much for a lunchtime talk. When we're thinking of trauma, you're probably thinking of a car accident, a head injury. It doesn't have to be that drastic to be a traumatic event. And it also involves bouncing back from challenging experiences, and recognizing the emotions that foster relationship and those key traits. So for me, when I think about resilience, initially, when I was thinking, what does it mean for me? It takes me back to my teaching days. So I mentioned I was a teacher. And if you have friends or family members that's ever worked in education, so I taught at a secondary school. So this is 11 to 16 year olds. Um, And if you've got teenager or cousin or nephew, you'll probably resonate with what I'm talking about. So imagine you've just qualified as your first teaching job and you enter a classroom and you've got 30, 14-year-olds there screaming, misbehaving because you're the new teacher and they can do that, right? Because they don't know you and you don't have any rule and they can walk over you. And you're like, okay, great. And everything they've taught you in the teaching practice, put your hands up, count to five. You've done all that great stuff, and you not seem to get the results that you got when you were being trained. You're like, okay, what's going on here? So that was my first experience, I would say, of facing something called resilience. You can call it resilience, you can call it unqualified, whatever it is. But I had to be resilient, put a brave face on that, yeah, I've got this. I'm like, okay, right, guys, I've already put my hand up. Can you guys now be quiet? If not, I'm going to have to escalate to level 2. I had no clue what level 2 was. I don't even know what level 1 was. But I just had to put that face on that, put that persona on. And I wonder how many of us, even with our day job now, have to put a persona on, especially when you're in certain meetings, in certain settings, with certain stakeholders, because you have to show up in a certain way. And I think as females, especially, we're quite emotional by nature, by default. Of course, we can train ourselves, we can read books, we can get coaching, we can be mentored, we can learn from others and attend webinars and things and learn from that. And I think it's important to recognize those emotions. And I'll come back to that in a minute. But that's what resilience means to me. It's like adapting to a situation, especially when it's not something you're used to or out of your comfort zone. So what's mindset? Mindset is, again, it's like a mental lens. So the way I explain this is we all have, I've got glasses and I can see the world through whatever prescription my optician, they've given me. And I can see Natalie's got glasses. I can see Fran's got glasses and she sees the world through her lens. But this lens I'm talking about, it's different. So a bit about me. I was born in Nigeria. I wasn't born in the UK. And I migrated. My mom brought me over here when I was 9 years old. So I did my last 2 years of primary school here in England. And I happened to have, at the time, lived in East London. If you've ever been to Stratford or East London or read the media and the post, you will understand some of the challenges that is in those areas. And these were in the mid-90s. And eventually, I remember coming in and the first day at school, because school back home was different, school in Nigeria was different, we had like teachers who sat with you and did work with you, and it just felt weird. It felt really, it didn't feel right. But hindsight, going back and looking back at what I was expecting where the classroom will be all of us and the teacher will stand in front and we'll all be, listening. And if you don't listen, you get spanked and you get physically spanked. So when I came and I sat in the classroom and the teacher sat next to me, read with me, held my hand to do the handwriting, I was like, okay. So I was experiencing life in a different way. So the lens that I'd come with was a different experience. The same thing with of life. So if, for example, right now you're working, you've worked your way up, you've been to university, you've been to school, you're working, it's a different experience to somebody who actually maybe they've never worked a day in their life. They're going to have a different lens, even though they might be the same age as you. It's a different lens if you're coming from an environment where actually you have to stay at home because that's the culture you come from. They see life from a different lens. So when I think about mindset, I'm always conscious of that. We all have different background biases, whatever shaped us, whatever made you who you are, right? If you grew up with two parents, if you grew up with one parent, all of those lenses somehow make up your prescription of how you see the world today. And I think for me, that was very, very important because from the beginning, from my childhood, I started to realize that some of the things that I was seeing as disadvantage or that's not right or this is not right was only not right for me because what wasn't right for me didn't mean it wasn't right for someone else. So, for example, I wasn't allowed to go out after school and play with my friends because that was just, you don't do that. My brothers could, but I wasn't allowed to. And I saw that as why? Why can't I go out? Obviously growing up older, I understood why my mum made certain decisions, but I saw that it was unfair, it wasn't, So mindset is important, your experiences will shape you. Another aspect to think about when we think about mindset is the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. A fixed mindset, as we know, is someone who's got, I guess, strong opinions, maybe strong feelings about a certain thing, and that's how it is, and that's how the world operates. And anything else you tell me is not true. No, and I'm not going to learn that. That's not the case. And a growth mindset is someone who's willing to take challenges, help, and explore. They're still holding to their own beliefs and values and core beliefs, but they're still thinking, okay, let me see how it goes. Let's try it for a week. Let's try it for 2 weeks. I'll give an example. So I worked in an organization where it was a migration project. We had to migrate, we had to migrate from an old payments platform to a new payment platform. But in order for us to migrate the platform, obviously we needed to keep the operation, the data operation not affected. So we needed to make sure our customers were still able to access, their data, transactions were not failing. But we needed to do it, and we were given a time frame. And I think if you remember 6, 7 years ago, we had something called SCA, which was strong customer authentication. I know we all do it now, it's not a new thing. But when that was being implemented, it meant that, you could use your eyes, you could use your face, and it was all a new thing then. But then it also meant the systems that were catering for your traditional, using your card, using your PIN, you weren't able to use that. And I remember one of the lead developers at the time was like, "Oh, I've been here 30 years. We've always done it this way. We can't we have to do it. We have to we have to leave it." And one of the junior developers that was there was actually, no, 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 no. We can do this. We can do that list. We can put containers. It's like, no, 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 no. We do that. Anyways, it was just a shambles. So as a coach coming into that, and I said, okay, this is what we're going to do. Let's have that planning. Let's put all our ideas on board. Let's then see how we're going to go with that. Let's see how we can point vote or dot vote. And to his surprise, our very experienced senior manager and all of that, he was surprised that a lot of the people voted for what the junior developer had picked. It's like, we'll see how it goes anyway. But if it goes wrong, it's not me. And sends a chains of emails to say, if this doesn't work, I have said this is going to work. I've said, anyways, it worked. Okay. And for the first time, I think that shook him to say, okay, maybe I can be a bit more open. But historically, if I had done that and it's gone wrong, traditionally you'd be fired. And that was kind of where he was coming from. He'd seen colleagues make such mistakes from before, and he was too scared to take that leap. So it's really important we open ourselves up to learnings, new ways of doing things. And then also mindset can be changed, as in that example. Going forward, it wasn't like he jumped on every new idea, no, but he was a bit more open to it. So if we open ourselves up, we can learn, different things and become more resilient in terms of that. So I know we've got a few managers in here, but one of the things that I see and I've experienced is, so I've started my career, as I said, as a teacher, transition into tech. I had to start from scratch again, and I felt like I had to build up my experience and everything again. But one of the things that really held me back in myself is when I transitioned, I thought because I had to start from scratch again, well, maybe I shouldn't really made that decision. In fact, when I resigned from my previous organization, when I was transitioning, I actually asked them to take my resignation back. And they said no because of how scared I was. But then I realized that actually in transitioning and taking that step, that was the right thing to do, obviously looking back. But there was this aspect of decisions I've made in the past that's holding me back. My own emotions, my own kind of frustrations on how I think it should go and how smoothly it should have been. I thought when I transition, it'll be okay. It'll be easy. There was a lot of learning, and that's when I realized I needed something called self-development. There's knowledge and there's self-development, and that self-development aspect is the part I'm going to delve into. So one of the things I did in terms of having a resilient, because I realized I liked resilience because obviously I was just given up easily, but also I wasn't sure my decision was right. I didn't have the right support network, or I didn't build the right support network. I transitioned without having thinking of that. So one of the things that I then did was actually embark on having a support network. I was intentional. I wanted to make sure that for me to cope, I needed that support network. I needed to keep my emotions in check. I needed to also make sense of what I was doing. I didn't have all that. So I came across this equation. I thought this will sum it up. You see, resilience is not just about I can do this and affirmation. Yeah, you can do this, you got this. We can all psych ourselves up, but it's deeper than that. I believe it's about your coping, your grit, how much do you really want it, your emotional intelligence. So it's okay to start a new organization, but then you go to the organization and you're expecting a promotion in 6 months, and then if you don't get it, you think you're not doing well. So setting realistic expectations and goals for yourself, and a sense, and also making sense of the reality as well of what's happening. So using all of these coping mechanisms will help us in a way to cope very well. And in terms of the grit aspect, I think came from after I had children. You know, before I had children, I was still very hardworking, but after having children, I think they changed for me, changed me in terms of I had a bigger why. What's my why? See, my why before was I want to transition to tech, I want to work in a tech company and do that. And then my why changed from no, I want to have a career, but I also want to be there present for my kids. But I also don't want to have to I want to show up to be the best as well. So for me, that was very important. So I love this quote when I came across trying to prepare for this. It's not that I'm so smart, it's just that I stay with the problem long enough. So I'll share one particular story. So during my transition into tech, and this is where kind of building a resilience mindset came from, I was also going through a life challenge where my relationship broke down. And then at that time, we also had COVID. Um, Apologies. I'm going to throw this question to you guys whilst I run to get my charger. I just realized my laptop isn't charged and the cable that's here wasn't charging my laptop. So I'm going to throw this back to you, Kevin. What does this quote mean to you?
I was not expecting that, Sade. Honestly, you guys stitch me up every week. I think it is a great quote, though, isn't it? Because it just shows that any challenge is overcomable if you persist, and you're not necessarily going to be successful the first time you try and do something or the first time around. But if you put the effort in, you'll get there, and you shouldn't be deterred by the failure along the way. You learn from the failure. What are other people's thoughts about it?
I think the reference to the network and the people around you is really important, because it's not always about you being able to solve the problem, and how you get through something is those people that you bring with you, or that you can bring to the problem to help you solve it.
It's having trust.
Trying to do something on your own is really tough. Sorry, Natalie.
So I was just saying, it's having trust in those people too. I think it's important.
Agreed.
I think I totally I love this quote actually. I've actually not seen this quote before, but I really like it. But I think it's also, it says it's not that I'm so smart that I stay with problems longer. It's good but it's knowing whether the problem you're staying with for a long time is worth staying with, and knowing when to let it go, I think is important in that.
Yeah.
Because I think it's really key to, I will, if I know that there is an outcome at the end of something, then I will persist with something. But there is an element in knowing when a problem, it's best to just let go, So I think as long as you can get that balance right.
That's my view. I agree with that too.
Yeah, same. I also believe that I found that obviously we're very complex beings as humans, and what might work for you might not work for me. Before this class, I believed I was very resilient, but there are some points that that has been raised, and I'm like, oh, I haven't thought about it this way before, and so I'm a different person from how I was previously. So I just feel like the more you try to solve for a problem, you're also changing the more you get answers. So I don't know if that makes any sense to the quote.
Yeah, the lens that you see is different every single time, and every organization shapes you differently. But some can break you as well, which we'll get to. I don't want to put the gloom, but that's the reality. If you work in some organizations, you might be taking you the other way, right? And there's a difference between resilience and, I would say, not knowing your worth, or not knowing your worth really. Yeah.
And I would say as well, you know, with this quote, I would say the context around these quotes helps a lot. So he's probably talked when he's Albert Einstein has said that, he's probably talking about a problem that he stayed with because he's seeing progress. He's seeing markers that he's getting somewhere. But I mean, that's where knowing when to let go comes into it, right? Because if you're not seeing those markers of progression or markers of you're actually getting to the bottom of this, or there's another route for you to take with it, then obviously let go.
Yeah. So I got to mention, so I am a scientist by default. So my degree was in pharmacology. So one of the things that I did is spend a lot of time in a lab to make different chemicals and hope they worked and didn't work and so on. So a lot of the stuff, and again, goes back to the lens, everything that you are today, like say your family upbringing, the job you do, your friends you have, the type of parents you've had, parenting you've been exposed to, all of that shapes the lens. So when we talk about being resilient, like you said, Natalie, the context is very important. If you're in certain countries as a woman, you can be resilient, but you also have to use common sense, right? In some aspect, because some behaviors, because of that environment, you may put yourself in more danger. So yeah. Sorry, so it's charging now. So one of the things for me is about building your own personal resilience. It's great to have a community, it's great to have a mentor, it's great to have friends, and I'll talk about that will help you, but your personal resilience, so that when no one's there, when you're alone, what do you tell yourself? How do you get yourself out of that hole when you know that you're going into a hole? So as it says there, fostering the connection is important, but self-discovery and understanding your strengths. So one of the things I did, and one of the practical aspects I applied for myself when I realized that when I was maybe facing a lot of stress at work or uncertainty, redundancy, is I went back to what are the things. So if you remember the pillar, I said I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, and that bigger circle helps me. Because if I take myself, I'm an employee. That's the gap. There was a gap there, intentional, right? You're an employee. You work for a certain organization, unless you're a business owner, you own and you work full time for yourself. So when you look at the bigger spectrum of who you really are, you will realize that a lot of the time, and we do it, I still do it, we actually focus on maybe one or two aspects. Maybe you focus on a parent and employee side, and you forget the other side to you. So, and the reason why that's important is because when you're having those dips, you can step into those other roles that you bring, and sometimes that's enough to get you through. So for me, I noticed that when I feel at my worst, that's when I'm able to actually mentor people better, because I feel like I can't really change what's going on. It's really, but I know I can help someone with this and that. And I find that came kind of organically, but then I realized that was a pattern I was noticing when I go through certain challenges. Somehow, I don't know if it's the power of the universe, whatever you call it, I would have someone that's really needs help, and it would be something I'd solved before, and I feel like I know how to get them out of this, and I'll be able to help them. And for me, that then gives me that worth that, okay, I do have value, and it helps me to start to kind of pick myself back up again. And again, it says maintaining perspective and see crises are manageable. I'm not saying every single problem is manageable, but I'm just saying if there's a big issue, say for example, even within certain workspaces at the moment, there's a lot of redundancy going on. You're thinking, I've been here for 10 years, I haven't really upgraded, I don't know what to do next, I don't think I want to even stay. And it's just so big. Break it down. Why were you here? Why did I come here in the first place? What was it? We all have a reason we joined wherever we are. If you're working, there was a reason why someone saw something in you that they felt you could help them solve, right? So going back to the why helps. That crisis situation helps you to kind of come back and say, okay, so if I could and the why could have changed, and sometimes we don't even realize that. Right, so the micro-organization, I joined them, and I was wearing a different hat to what I'm wearing now. And why I joined them hasn't changed, but what I'm doing and the problems I'm solving has changed, right? And again, just looking back, why am I even doing this particular role? Why? Is it because, someone's just, oh, you'll be good at this, come and do this? Or is it something that when you wake up, it excites you? You feel proud. When people ask you, what do you do? Are you proud of it? So in the workplace context of that's that aspect. In the personal aspect of it, are you proud of you? I know that's, sometimes we don't want to say, but are you proud of you? Are you proud of if you were to look at what you were doing 5 years ago, or what you wanted to, are you proud of who this version of Sade, Mariana, are you proud of who that version? Again, that helps us to then say, do you know what, I'm proud of me. Yeah, this bit might not be going well, work might not be going great, or maybe family life's not going great at the moment, but actually I'm quite proud of my mentees. I see 2 of them have secured a role, whatever that is. And you start to talk all the positives, right, around you, rather than focusing on that aspect. So that's one of my coping mechanisms. And there are different ways to cultivate. So talking about relationships, one of the things I did, COVID was hard. I was at home with 3 kids working full time, and they all went to the same school, and they all had online learning at the same time. And we only had 2 computers, and obviously couldn't use work laptops. So it was, that was testing. And just to add to that, I then had a sick spouse who became sick with cancer at the time. And I was like, okay, if I make it through this, then I can make it through anything. And I look back now and I ask myself, how did we cope? I know we all, have our own COVID stories, but one of the things is, going back to what I said, is definitely try to focus on one thing at a time. So I didn't try and join 3 school meetings at the same time. That was not possible. But one thing I did was, we actually, because again, within the kind of the job I do as an agile coach, I had a big whiteboard. I put a board on Amazon, like immediately, a big whiteboard, put lanes in it, and I wrote each kid's name. For me, I'm a visual person. If I can see it, I believe I can do it. That's me, right? So you might have something different for you that works for you. Some people like voice notes, or so. And looking at it, I'm like, there's no chance we're going to be at that 3 at the same time. So guys, which one do you think we can move? And we made a family meeting, right? The same way we do sprint planning. We made okay, Mommy, maybe we don't need to do that anymore. So we had to cut out certain things, and it helped. It wasn't easy at the start, but it helped. Even till now, I still do that with my kids. And as a parent, because you have to bring your whole self to work, I think some of these strategies is not just about your personal, it's about also applying that to other areas of your life. Because if you can ease the pressure on other areas of your life in that circle, it will help you to show up better, to be more resilient, to be able to handle a bit more of some of the things that will come your way, because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what's going to come next week or the week after. But your day-to-day shouldn't be so chaotic that when something happens, it kind of shatters everything, and that whole circle just, because when you're not your best, all that circle doesn't work. All those aspects all fall apart. So if work is giving you a lot of stress and you're not your best, it's not just work that's impacted, it's everything else. So that's one. And also, accept the change is a part of life. I mean, when COVID happened, it happened, and nobody had a warning. We just kept going, and we all kept going. Or hopefully we don't get COVID. Hopefully I get it, I don't die from it. You just don't know. Do I get a vaccine? Do I not? But if we look up at that now, it was important. And I think at that time, a lot of people started to go for walks and talk to themselves, journal. I've always been someone that journals as well. That's another way I try to almost talk to myself. Sometimes I'll write it and then throw it in the bin. Sometimes I'll write and I'm keeping this, and that's okay as well. I've just said that. So accept the change and continuously learning. So one of the things I also did was I wanted to learn from those who have been in my shoes. So I was reading books on leaders. One of the books that I love to read, and I read over and over again, is The Courage to Live Your Dreams. It's by Les Brown. He's a motivational speaker. I'll put the links later. And sometimes I think why is this guy always happy? He's always happy. He's just got so much energy. But when you really read his story, as an orphan, didn't know his mom and dad, and raised in a very horrible way, but turned out to be very influential and very powerful and helping other people. It just makes you think some of the strategy he's really focused on his mental health and made sure he was okay then he was able to give out to others. So it's so important that you're learning from those who have gone ahead of you. And some of the learnings doesn't have to be from a famous person. It can be from the person on this call. It can be from your sister. It can be from those at work that's been through things. We learn every day. Every day life gives us the opportunity to learn. You know, you hear someone say, oh, I don't really read books. It's okay. Sometimes the learning is around you. And then reflecting and self-awareness is so important. So one of the things I did this last 2 years was to help myself. I bought a planner that allows me to journal and be able to self-reflect, and able to just go back and say, oh, what was January like? What was February like? And sometimes I'll just go back and have a look, because sometimes we forget our achievements. And then we're in March and we think, oh my gosh, at the end of Q1, I didn't achieve all my goals. And go back and have a read. And sometimes when you have a read, you're like, do you know what? Oh, I forgot I did that. Oh, I forgot I did that. And that also helps. Yeah. Again, creating a friendly environment, implementing workplace practices. When I come into office like today, I'm intentional. I want to meet 2 or 3 people for coffee. I don't want to just come and sit behind my laptop, smile and do the meetings and go. So be intentional. Be really intentional. Create intentional relationships that will help you. And where opportunities are, again, for me, it works is give back to someone that you know you can help as well. When you're giving back and you're helping somebody else, you're really solving your own problem. Because sometimes when we give back and that advice, you think, oh my God, I probably should use that same advice on myself. I'm sure we've all had that moment, aha moment, when you're telling someone something and you're thinking, I probably should do this as well. Right? So that's part of your self-development as well. And you will face, a bit of vulnerability post, but you will face instances. So for me, as a ethnic minority woman in a tech space, I'm like 7% of the workforce anyway. And then the discrimination, and not necessarily, I'm not talking about color, I'm talking about being a female in certain roles is there, and you will face that, and it's right in front of you, right? Sometimes it's not intentional. For organization, for example, I work with, it's like 90% male. I'd say 80 to 85% male. So the female ratio isn't much anyway. So when you're in the room, sometimes you will feel that. Sometimes you will feel like you're the only female in the room. Sometimes you're the only female that is also ethnic minority in the room. And if you yourself are not confident and self-aware, you will not show up as your best. When there's this, a statement to be made, you'll be shriveling back. So for me, for example, I remember there was a meeting, we had a new leadership, and I was in a meeting not so long ago, and everybody was talking, and one of the male that was like, Shada, we haven't heard from you. What do you have to say? And normally I talk and I try to interact, and I didn't realize that I'd shrivel in myself, just because I felt like, oh, let me just keep quiet, let me just listen. So one of the things I would encourage you to do is to get mentorship, and it's okay. Get mentorship for those who are above, who've been through it. And immediately after that, I reached out to one of the senior managers who was a female. We do have a few here. And I said, look, I need you to mentor me. And I walked through that situation of what I'd just been through. And it wasn't like, I was being picked. It was just me, and I didn't realize that until the person, I was trying to, do you have something to say? I'm just like, okay. So it's important. Being resilient, it means also being vulnerable. And I think that's the opposite for me. Okay. So these perspectives I'm giving is from my perspective, my little experience. And that single change alone has opened this big can of worms where I've got to know actually a lot of the people I'm seeing that in leadership and doing well, I'm like, oh my God, so you have this concern, you have this, Shada, I face it all the time. I'm the only female in this. And, one was telling me a story about how they went for dinner and it was like all, I think, marble floor with their heels. All their men were walking freely. And she was like, I'm scared I'm going to drop my wine. Right? Little things like this, we don't talk about it, but that is part of how we show up. You've got to be confident to be your best. And then also managing the conflict effectively. Conflict will happen. And that's part of the workspace. It will happen even in your personal life as well. One of the things that I've learned is listen more than you speak. And sometimes when I know that I'm speaking too much, I literally pinch myself so I know to stop. And then listening, that when you speak, you're not listening to kind of do a verbal tennis, you're listening to pick out what's this person trying to tell me, what message are they trying to get across. Sometimes even the way they're speaking is not what you're looking at, the body language says it all. So listening, active listening, is something that's a good skill to practice. And then communicating clearly and respectfully. It's okay to send an email, but don't send it when you're angry. Don't send it when you've just been in a meeting and it's been one of those days. It's okay to go for a little walk. If you don't have a space to walk in your office or near it, it's okay to go to the toilet and just chill for a bit, calm down. That's okay. And I think, yeah, don't compromise who you are. That's one thing. So being resilient doesn't mean you have to be weak. Stay true to who you are. And that means if something doesn't sit well with you, say it, even if it's uncomfortable. One of the ways I say it, for me, I'd say, I'm not sure, I'm just thinking, if we role play this, if William was blah, 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 you know, I just use a random name, that's obviously not someone's name in the room, would they also think that way? Or do you think John would think it? And just kind of then let the silence there. And very often in those situations, somebody will say, we haven't thought of that. Rather than coming across and say, but this is how we should do it. This is the way to go for. No. So you have to be careful. So role playing helps as well, that hypothetical role play. And tools, I think setting yourself clear goals, like I said, I'm not promoting her diary, but I like it. It's a planner. It's a HR planner, and I can put it in a link. And it has 3 quarters. That Q1, Q2, Q3, and it's broken it down to your goals, strengths. So I love that. For me, it's helped me. Engaging coaching. So for me, I have a coach, and I'm really so grateful for the Read Women in Tech platform. I've got a great mentor as well that I can speak with. You need those people around you. Working on yourself is great, but you then also need that mentorship. You need people who have been through there. And I'm sure they can probably tell you loads of stories as well. And then, yeah, emotional intelligence is another big topic, but just be human. There's no point of putting all the jargon, just be human. What you wouldn't like to be done to you or how someone to react to you, then don't react that way. So being resilient doesn't mean you don't speak up. It just means that we think, we listen more before we then, speak. Guess I want to ask anybody any other tools that you guys have used to help you cope?
No, but I mean, just off the back of what you said about the self awareness, is that I think a big part of resilience is knowing that it's okay to go into that hole sometimes and feel crappy about yourself and like just be a bit, oh, I hate everything kind of scenario. It's okay to do that. It's how you bring yourself out of that is what is the resilience. Resilience isn't never feeling low or never going into one of those holes. That's not what resilience is. Resilience is the getting out of it. And that when you're noticing someone might be going for a bit of a hard time, is just what you say to them to, I don't know, just give them a little bit of a push into coming out of it with that resilience. So just, oh, do you remember when we did this? You was really great at that. Or just anything that might boost their confidence a bit, which will speed along their resilience of coming out the other side of whatever it is they're going through. I think it's important to do that for other people, but just realize yourself as well that just it's okay to be in that hole. It's okay. That's the resilience part, is coming out of that hole, not never going in it. I think that's
I think once you're in the hole, having somebody to vent at and let it all out.
Yeah.
Because particularly as you get more senior, there are less people you can share things with about what's going on, and bottling it up isn't any good either. So you have to have your safe space amongst your peers or people that you've worked with previously, where you can just go and let it all out, and then hopefully, as Natalie says, they'll say some of those things to you that make you realise that you do know what you're talking about, and you do know how to deal with it. But actually, it can be just quite cathartic to have a good rant.
Yeah. That's why going into the office and being intentional, for those who do go into office physically, be intentional. That human relationship is, you can't buy that virtually, personally. You know, go and have lunch together and being intentional. So, because I feel like working remotely has helped a lot of us in terms of, I guess, showing up in other areas of our life more than we would normally get the opportunity to. But at the same time, it has taken away that deep connection that we might have with our colleagues if you're not intentional about it.
Yeah.
Charlie, I've got a question for you. So do you actually think that resilience can be taught? Because for me, it feels more like it's just something you have to go through and you build through human experience and like throwing yourself into stuff and that human experience piece, rather than it being something you can teach. I mean, you're giving tools that obviously help to recognize and build your own resilience, but yeah, I just wonder what your views were.
So the reason why, so you can't teach resilience. I think being resilient is that circle again, is understanding who you are. You have to see yourself as the whole package, right? And then what you are showing, most of the time, what most of us show, especially the 9 to 5, is the aspect, we'll put on a character. That's the thing. We're all like, when you're watching movies, we're all a character when we come. Obviously, depending on what character you want to play. So, but then because of the experiences you have, you know how to show up in different ways. You know how to perform in different ways. As a manager, you'll show up differently to your direct reports than to your own manager, right? One of the things that, is experience, I'd say, more than anything. But then you can learn, you can get that experience from books. You can get it from people around you. You can get it from mentorship, especially. And where there's a bit more tricky and you've got big challenges, you can get it through coaching. Because coaching will allow you to peel up, it's like an onion, you pick up all the layers, pick out all the layers and just get to the root cause and then start to work your way how you're going to build that back up. So you have to recognize where you need help. I didn't have a mentor for almost 2 years. I just jumped into the mentorship in Q4 last year because I realized I need a mentor now. And then it gets to the point where actually I'm okay now. And that's okay. So you're going to be in different seasons, the same way we have autumn, winter, summer, whatever. It's the same way it goes in waves. Sometimes you need to put on your game face, as they say. And sometimes you need to put on your, as in a swimwear, beachwear. So that's the way I see it. When we talk about building resilience, it's about knowing where to show up and how to show up in different scenarios. I remember when the first time I had to present to our CEO, I was so scared. I was like, I talk really fast. He probably won't understand me. He's French. He's what, and I was going through the presentation lots and lots of time. And when we got to the presentation, he said, "Oh, I've seen this. So tell me what you think about it." I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. I worked my way up. I worked myself up to present this thing that everybody had been through in the department. We'd made sure. And he was like, he doesn't want that. He wants to hear from me. And I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. What do I say? What do I say? But I mean, yes, it's not a challenging situation. It's not. But at that time, I just somehow I showed up, right? You just do it. So again, for experience and stuff. So one of the things I remember my boss says, they're human like you, Sade. They're just human. They've just got a big title. So once you see and you can really simplify how you show up, but you have to know yourself first. Obviously, if I knew that if I see my CEO and I'm going to freeze and I'm not going to, no word's going to come out my mouth, I would say, I don't think that's for me. Get someone else to do that, right? So you need to know where you are at and that journey. Any other questions? So I've got some books recommendation. I'm sure, I don't know if anybody's ever read the Angela Duckworth one. Great. Anybody read it? No? Okay, it's a really good book. And I would say out of all these books, that's probably my favorite. So if you're looking for a book that will give you a bit more tips and tools and practical, I think that's a good starting point. There are others, like I mentioned, like Courage to Live Your Dreams, Start With Why. But I think for this particular topic, these are the books that I would recommend that you start with. And that's it. Any questions?
For anybody who struggles reading a whole leadership book, because I switch off halfway through, I was introduced to Blinkist, where you get them in little bite-sized chunks. Somebody's already done the hard work of reading it, and that one's on. I've already got it in my Think Library now to read. They've read the whole book, and then they play it back in short blinks, they call them, little 5-minute bits. So then you can feel really virtuous that you've learned something while you're on the treadmill. But it just makes them easier to digest.
Can you put what that is to me, please, in the chat?
Yeah.
Because I need that.
Was it Blinkist?
Blinkist, yes. Let me pop it in.
Oh, Blinkist. Okay.
When I work out how you spell it.
Kevin?
Yeah, Audible's quite good as well. But I like it when I do my long drive to office. So give myself a target of how many chapters I'm going to get through. But yeah, So yeah, like you said, Nat, I don't think being resilient can be taught. I think it's through experience. It's through just give it a go. What's the worst that can happen? That kind of mindset is what I tell myself. So yeah, hopefully you got one or two things, but yeah, that's hand over to you, Kevin.
Well, thank you, Sade. Really good session. Let's say, unless anybody else has anything else they want to ask Sade or any comments, then all I'd say, Sade, is I screenshotted the book list, so I'm going to share that those in my tea in the recommended book section. I'll add them also to the recording. But if you've got anything else that you want me to share alongside the video, let me know, and we'll make sure it's all available in one place. But otherwise, thank you very much for your time again, mate. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sade. Thank you. You was very confident as well. You wouldn't have known you was nervous, so just
It's very good.
thank you very much. It was great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Catch you later. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.